Welcome to the Becoming Podcast. My name is Gore and I'm a dating, lifestyle, relationship coach. I started this podcast after I kind of got the spark from my recent publishing of my book, Becoming a High Value Man. The vision I had for that book was that I want to create this trend or this norm, so to speak, of high value people. And so following that publishing, I started Sargisian Society as a symbol of a community of high value people. And now here we are starting a podcast to spread that message. And to be honest with you, I do not have any idea what I'm doing. I've never had a podcast before. This is my first episode of my first podcast, and I'm hoping for many more to come. But cheers to that, whoever's drinking right now. But not to get off topic, my name is Gore, and to tell you a little bit about myself, where I come from, and how I ended up being a dating, relationships, lifestyle coach. It's a really unexpected story. Not a funny story, but very unexpected, because I personally never thought that I would be in this position. And to be honest, I didn't know where I would be. I was always just going down the regular route of like majoring in political science when I was in college and minoring in business. And my hopes were to have a business one day, to be a businessman and expand and grow as a person. But my passion overall was to learn and understand human behavior. And I had no idea at the time that this was the path I was going down. All I cared about was, why do people act the way they act? And why do they react the way they react to different people doing the same thing, if that makes sense? So the thing that got me started on this journey was, like every other teenager, learning how to talk to women, how to be noticed, for example. Because I was never the popular kid. I came as an immigrant to this country, had to learn the language, had to learn to make new friends. And so I was always kind of the outlier in the group, and I had to learn to fit in. So from the beginning, I had to develop that empathy or that understanding of other people in order to blend in. I had trouble making friends, and I really desperately wanted to understand why. I remember I started out in third grade when I got here, and my only way to make friends was being the smart kid in class. I would let the other kids cheat off of me because I was really good at math, doing the math tests. And so I was so good with the addition, subtraction, multiplication, division. I would do mine really quickly, and then I would switch with the person next to me to do their test too. I was also pretty fit since childhood, so I would always try to prove myself. I'd always be trying to do the most push-ups in class, running for extra credit. I was just everywhere, getting gifts from my teachers, just really trying to fit in and be accepted. It was a big deal to me, and growing up, I lost a lot of people, I changed environments a lot, and so it was, at the core, it was kind of a chip on my shoulder to be accepted, to prove myself, to really feel that I have friends and family around me. Because I grew up having friends and family around me, and then it just, life took a turn. I ended up coming to the US, and family started spreading all over the world, into different countries. And I was faced with the reality of having to start over, make new friends, and keep in touch with family across the world. After spending my entire childhood with a big family, everybody always coming over, just everybody living near each other, and a lot of kids running around, to going to just me by myself. So that's where the spark came in terms of really wanting to understand behavior psychology. But I never really did it intentionally until around college time, when I was completely on my own, living by myself, without family to be sheltered by or take care of me, to cook for me, whatever. It was the first time that I had to learn to be on my own fully. So I really started being intentional about the people I meet, the people I make friends with, how to go about it, and putting more effort into maintaining those relationships, because I didn't have that comfort of family to rely on. It was just me, my roommates, and again, new environment, new people. By college time, I started being a lot more intentional with that learning process without really understanding the bigger picture. The more I dug into the world of women, the more I realized that learning how to relate, learning how to portray myself as an attractive man really was the mirror into learning about myself. And it was the journey of not only portraying myself as that, but learning to become that, and learning to adapt and embrace all the mindsets that go along with it, and then eventually the lifestyle that goes along with it. So women got me into the topic, but the fact that I could learn so much about myself based on the reactions I was getting or the receptiveness of another person was what kept me going, because it really brought to light all of my insecurities, all the things that held me back, even things I wasn't even things I wasn't aware of, which eventually led me down into the path of learning about traumas and reading the psychology behind that as well. But that's a conversation for another time. In college, I spent my time just gaining knowledge and not really taking as much action as I should in terms of putting myself out there, learning to be more social. I was just extremely introverted, very soft-spoken, very reserved. Even if I knew things, I wouldn't put myself out there to test things out, to apply them, to face rejection or embarrassment or anything like that. It took me a while, and it wasn't until I met one of my first mentors that I really broke out of my shell. And after that point, it was people would actually tell me, in the last year, you seem like you came out of a cocoon, which was very believable, because I was going night and day, diving deep into my own personal development, reading every book, listening to everybody, and following everybody that did it well to, I guess, reverse engineer their systems or their habits that made them so good in social environments and in social influence, to then adapt for myself. I did it so much that I ended up teaching others. And this was the next level of my development, because I found that teaching others was another angle of that mirror that led me back to myself. And I decided to pursue this journey at that point, because at that point I saw the bigger picture. I understood that what I saw as just a need to be accepted, a need to be cool, a need for validation in my teenage years was actually just a need for meaningful connection. That was the point when I really started valuing other people as a source of energy in my life. And I started being a lot more aware and cautious of who I let around me. And these realizations aren't really that common, as I came to find out, because a lot of people, a lot of my friends would be on this journey of learning how to be better with women. And as the nature of it is, going from one person to another and having multiple partners and living that dream life of just having so many women around you, having several partners, turned out to be not as fulfilling as it is in fantasy. Because you realize that when you go from one person to another and you keep changing partners and you just always having one night stands or whatnot, it's an empty feeling, and there's no fulfillment that comes from it. And only when you have that abundance do you realize that it's empty. And at that point, not a lot of people realize this next step, that having abundance of people does not mean having an abundance of connection. Many people that reach that level and have an abundance of people have a scarcity of connection. And that was the realization that I had, that I didn't see a lot of people around me having. And so a lot of them would just be disappointed and stop that development process. And I myself, a lot of times, wanted to stop in terms of learning how to be more social. But I didn't, because I had no other option. What was I going to do? Just come back and sit in my room and not do anything, just relive the rest of my life, not understanding how human behavior works, not learning more about myself, not overcoming the things that held me back, that bothered me, that caused pain. There was no option to stop. And that's where mentorship was the biggest thing for me, because a lot of things that I didn't see in myself, my mentors saw and pointed out. And I didn't know what I didn't know. And that's where the epiphanies were. And I got them by putting myself in the field of embarrassment and rejection and being willing to lose and fail, that I started understanding more about myself. So having seen that disappointment in men of going from partner to partner, looking for love, to be loved, to give love, and looking for that deep, meaningful connection and lacking it, my mission at that point became to change the perspective of men, because a lot of us don't know how to relate, because there is an epidemic of men that have given up on themselves, that have fallen into depression, that have never learned leadership skills, that have never learned masculine qualities. And so women, on the other hand, are becoming more masculine. And a lot of them even complain that they're never approached by men. But it's this whole toxic narrative in society where men don't know how to approach women. They approach aggressively. They don't pick up on cues. Women get offended. They get intimidated. They may react in a way that's not pleasant to the man. Then the man has a bad perception of women. And then women have a bad perception of men, because it just goes in a cycle. Whereas it's just a matter of us not understanding each other. It's not men against women. We're all one people. And we need to learn to relate and empathize with one another. So having said that, I decided to not make this podcast solely around men. I want this podcast to be around people in general, because self-development is something for everybody. And so my goal with this podcast is going to be to dive deep into the topics that I know best in terms of relationships, in terms of self-development, mindset, as well as having people who are also experts in their fields contributing their thoughts on what it means to become that better version of yourself, to become a higher you. So join me on this journey of self-discovery and becoming better every single day as we explore different topics, as well as listen to different experts in their fields and their stories and their definitions of becoming high value. Add me on Instagram at coach_gore, and TikTok, same handle, and I'll see you next time. Thank you for listening.